Conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good. So we're picking up on 55120, where we're finishing up this very large fifth parak of Shar, the gateway of Yichud Hamasa, of focusing our actions and not getting diverted, not getting distracted, not getting misled in the good things that we're trying to do. So the last thing we spoke about was that if you are, the Yetzer Hara will try, pardon me 1 second, sorry. If you know more than other people, so then you'll start to have this feeling of superiority and looking down on other people. Like, they don't know as much as I do. I know so much more. And then that leads to big problems, because then when you don't know something, well, you can't not know something. So you've got to act as if you do know, and then you're all over the place. You're issuing incorrect rulings, and you're going down a very, very slippery slope. Besides the very fact that you have this haughtiness, and Moshe, who is the greatest of all people, is also the most humble of all people. So we're not supposed to compare ourselves to those who are doing less than us. We're supposed to compare ourselves to those who are doing more than us, and always look to see what more can I do, or how can I do things better. Moshe, who is in the company of God, was comparing himself to godliness, and therefore he was very, 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 very humble. So if you know more, then he tries to give you the sense of superiority. If you know less, then the jealousy creeps in, and you have to undermine that person, right? If that person knows more than me, is better than me, so that doesn't leave me feeling all that great. So what do I have to do? I have to tear that person down, right? It's always easier to tear someone else down than to build oneself up, right? So that was the danger that he spoke about before in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom, in terms of Torah knowledge. V'im lo yushlam lo, ma shekivein lepatotcha b'shar da'at ha'elokim v'torato. Is that where everybody is? Is that the right place? Good. And if he will not be able to persuade you, to try to mislead you when it comes to the knowledge of God and His Torah, Yishtadel lefatotcha b'sha'ar, he'll try to seduce you, mislead you in the gateway of maaseh ha'avodah, in the actions of avodah, of serving Hashem. Meaning, kashetasa l'elokim maaseh, right? When you do anything good, any mitzvah, any good kind act, so what will happen? Yagdileyu, v'inaseyu beinecha. It'll become aggrandized and inflated in your eyes. V'yisimcha litgaot bo, and it will lead you to acting with ga'ava, to acting with haughtiness, with pride. I just did such a great mitzvah. I'm really amazing. V'ikale anshe dorcha etzlecha, and you look at other people, your contemporaries, other people of your generation, and they'll say, they're not doing what I'm doing, and they'll become minimized, lightweights in your eyes. V'yakel alech lema'asam, and therefore it'll be very easy for you to dismiss them, literally to despise them, lach limam, to humiliate them, lebaisham, to embarrass them. The efshar she'ein tovim mincha lifnei ha'elokim. And this is such a crucial line. You might be doing more, but they might be greater than you in the eyes of God, right? And this is something that we discussed before. I mentioned that Gemara of the Gemara Baba Basra, of a person who died and then was revived. And his father asked him, "What did you see?" And he said, "I saw an upside down world, right? The great were lower, and the lower were greater, right?" And the way that Rav Moshe Feinstein and others explain it is he saw people who had done more mitzvot, more Torah learning, more tzedakah, and they were lower than people who did less Torah learning, less mitzvot, less tzedakah. And his father said, "Well, you saw a clear world. Why is that not an upside down world, but a clear world, because everyone has a different situation, right? And for one person, giving $1,000 is really digging in deep, right? And that's a greater mitzvah than someone else giving $100,000. If for them it's just a couple of pennies. I've told the story before when I was teaching in Israel. So one of the boys came to visit, and I was talking with him, and he told me a story. He lived in a very very expensive area, but he himself was a shoe salesman at Florsheim. So, he made a living, but was not anywhere near the league, right? This is in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Nowhere near the league of all these other, stockbrokers and investment bankers and these other people. So there was a rabbi coming from Israel who was going to be having a parlor meeting. He'd be giving a class, and people would give some checks to help his very worthy institution. So this shoe salesman said to his friend, "Let's go." And his friend said, "They're not looking for guys like me and you. They're looking for the heavy hitters." So he said, "We're not taking away anyone else's seat. The heavy hitters should go, and we should also go. We should go to hear a good shiur from a very serious Talmid Chacham, a serious Torah scholar." His friend agreed. They went. After he finished speaking, then the balabayit, the person who was hosting it, said, "There's a wonderful institution, right? Please, let's support the great work this rabbi does." So again, the shoe salesman elbowed his friend and said, "Come on, take out your wallet, take out your checkbook." And his friend said, "Come on, right? What are we going to do?" He said, "I'll show you what we can do." Right? He took out his checkbook and he wrote a check for $18. And he said, "That's what I can do. Can you do that? You can do that. So do that." Right? And what the Chosavavas is saying is, who knows if those $18 checks were not more chashiv in the heavens, more respected and more valued in the heavens than someone who wrote a check for $18,000. Right? It all depends. How much is a person digging in, and how much, and what is a person's feeling? Is it, "Oh, I got to give again, I'll give again," or is it, "Oh, what an opportunity," right? Because we'll see later on also, the attitude that we have is going to completely either uplift or downgrade the actions that we do. So therefore, you see that you're doing certain things that other people aren't doing. You have no way of measuring how God measures. God takes everything into account, that person's background, that person's financial situation, that person having gone into an argument with their wife or husband that morning or not, right? All these things that are going on, right? No one knows what's going on in everyone else's world, but everyone is a world in and of themselves, and everyone has their stuff that they deal with. So therefore, if you're doing certain actions that others aren't doing, right, don't you dare allow them to become simple, dismissive, right? Don't dismiss them. Certainly don't embarrass them or degrade them. It's possible that they are greater than you in the eyes of God. Now, the other way around. Let's say your friend has certain things that person does that you don't do, in serving God. Right? This person is more consistent in doing this mitzvah or attending that service or this service. Right? So then, and his actions are better than your actions. And he seems to be trying to draw closer to God, making more effort into drawing close to God than you are. In those situations, your Yetzer Hara will say to you, Kol asher yireh me'ashtodel zulatecha b'avodah hu chasaron nireh mimcha. The more he does, the worse you look. He's making you look bad. The more he does, the worse you're looking. Were it not for him, you would be viewed in the eyes of people and in the eyes of God, tzaddik, as a truly righteous person, mikol b'nei dorcha, more than your whole generation. But look what's happening with him around. They say, Ciner, he's a nobody. Look at this guy. He's a real serious Jew. That's a Jew, not this guy, right? And therefore the Yetzer says that. And therefore, he see alav. And therefore, what you should do is point out his faults to other people. Tear him down. Degrade him. Let him not be viewed as being so special. Kanebo, right? You should be jealous of him, but not jealousy in a good way. We say kinas sofrim tarbe chachma. If I'm jealous of scribes, then that will cause me to increase my wisdom, right? Not to tear that person down, but to build myself up. If that person is doing this much learning, why shouldn't I be doing that much learning? Why can't I also do that? The satomoto. But rather he says, you have to despise this person. V'chakor al mumav. Find his blemishes. Find his weak points. Ugenuso. And the areas where he's not all that praiseworthy. V'arov lamichsholav. You should be there, right? Always watching to see, waiting for him to stumble. Wait for him to stumble. Watch him stumble, and then you've got him where you want him. And then you could spread the word. V'hishkach ashkiosav. And you should make sure that you see any of the mistakes that he makes. Uparseim mehem mashetuchal. And then you should publicize it. Let everyone know who he really is. V'ganeu aleihen, right? And you should yes, ganeu. Not finding the word, sorry, right? But you should find fault and point out those faults. And let's say you can't find any real fault, but if you say this or that, people will believe it. If you can find some dibat sheker to say, in order to diminish his name, his reputation by others, I say that's what you should do. So that's how our Yetzer Hara, that internal voice that likes us to be, at the top of the heap. So those are the voices that we hear. If we're doing more, those are the voices. If we're doing less, those are the voices. Az tashiv alav. And your response should be as follows. Ve'ech emas mi she'ahavo ha'elokim. How can I despise someone that God loves? Ve'eganeh. How can I criticize mi sheshivchu abore, someone that the Creator Himself is praising that person? Below dai li atsaluti. It's not enough that I'm too lazy. Lekayem avodato kamohu, to fulfill my service to Hashem in the manner that person is doing it. Ad estom, I should even hate mi sheyavdeu, someone who does that. Ve'ein ze gemul ma shani chayav leborei yitbarach. That certainly is not what I owe. What I owe to the Creator, right? Who does so much for me, who gives me so much. Rather, v'chayavani lehov et oavav la'avato. I need to love those who love God. Ulechabed michavdav, and to honor those who honor God, lichvodo, in order to thereby honor God. Kamoshik Altuv, like the Pasuk says, that Yirei Hashem yichabed, those who are God-fearing, that's who you should honor, that's who you should respect. Ukvar yadata mashir et Miriam, right? We know in the Torah the story of what happened to Miriam, the prophetess. Miriam, who was the sister of Moshe and Aaron. Be'inyan v'tadaber Miriam v'Aaron v'Moshe. Miriam and Aaron spoke badly about Moshe, And here you have Miriam, who spoke badly about Moshe, but she didn't. Right? She was doing it for a good purpose, what she thought was a good purpose, but she was misunderstanding the situation. And Miriam certainly has equity in the God bank, right? Miriam is the one who helped to save Moshe when he was put into the river in the little basket, and Batya, the daughter of Paro, took him, right? And then he wasn't going to nurse, so she's the one who suggested, should I find a wet nurse from amongst the Ivrim? And she was able to bring Moshe back to his mother, that she would take care of him during those early years until he would be weaned and then returned to the daughter of Paro. So Miriam has a lot of equity in the bank. Let's put it like that. Whenever Natalie and I, if we do something wrong, say, you got a lot of equity in the bank. Don't worry, right? It's okay. A lot of equity in the bank. Miriam had a lot of equity in the bank. Nevertheless, right? She was struck with leprosy. She was struck with leprosy for speaking against Moshe. Umasha Yeminian Korach va'adato, right? And Korach and his cohorts who rebelled against Moshe, thinking, who is this Moshe to take the number 1 slot and to give the number 2 slot to his brother Aaron? All this cronyism, right? And we know, so again, there he was, instead of building himself up, he was looking to drag down Moshe, drag down Aaron, and many were dragged down with him. And we know what happened with him. They had the jealousy of Moshe and Aaron. Bikirvatam el Hashem, because they were so close to Hashem, and they had these important positions of closeness to Hashem. So therefore, we're dealing with great people, and yet this led to very, very serious repercussions. Aval. With that, we finish 5th parak. Okay? So we're now on 561, I believe. Okay. We continue. Aval hazihirut b'machshava ushmirata. So this carefulness in our machshavot, right? Again, this is the book of Chovot Alevavot, duties, obligations of the heart. So this carefulness, not just in our actions, but what are the thoughts that are going on inside our minds, inside our hearts. It's proper not to hide away from lifkod machshavatcha v'rayinocha v'sarafei libecha, to focus your thoughts, your feelings, and the stirrings of your heart. Hirov I have said, va'tikun b'ma'asim lo yiyeh ki im machmatam. The great loss, or the great correction, the great negative, or the great positive of an action is as a result of what are the thoughts that are going into it, right? Am I doing this grudgingly? Am I doing this because otherwise people will say badly? Am I doing this because I want to serve Hashem? Am I doing this because I have he has so much equity in the bank, because I owe Hashem so much that of course I'll jump at anything that I can do. And that's why I've mentioned before, sometimes, not always, sometimes it's good to do things publicly to set an example and let people follow suit. But some things it's good to do it in a way that no one knows and no one else will ever know. And that way it is you and mano el Dio instead of mano el mano, right? Just you and God. That's it. Just you and God, and have that intimate moment, that intimate bond that no one else knows about this except for you and God. Based on, are my machshavot, are my thoughts proper, right, or are they lacking? Like the pasuk says in Mishlei, Mikol Mishmar, from all the guardings that you do, right? Anything that's precious, we guard it, right? We might have a safe deposit box, right? We might have a special place where we keep jewelry, whatever it is. Mikol mishmar, more than you guard anything else, nitzor libecha. You should guard your heart. That's the most important thing, to guard and to manage where you are directing your thoughts, your feelings, your passion. Ki mimenu totzot chayim. Because upon that is dependent your life, right? Which is the most important thing that we have. And chayim, we always point out, chayim, yud mem at the end of a Hebrew word makes it plural. So your this world and your next world, right, are dependent on that. So guard that more than you guard anything else. Va'amra Torah, the Torah says, Ki yetz lev adam ra minu rav. Words, don't think that, don't worry. My autopilot will be to go towards positivity, to go towards doing things with very pure, upright motives. That's not the case, right? The yetzer lev adam, the yetzer of a person's heart, right, is ra minu rav. From our youth, it is misleading, as we've discussed many times, because that's life. And those are the challenges that we're supposed to have. And that's how we need to overcome. So we're not on autopilot to do the right things. The Omen, it says, Ki adati et Yisroel. It says there, I know. We just had this in the very end of Devarim. Hashem saying to Moshe, I know their Yetzer. I know their inclination. And it goes on to say just how far a person can descend, because it says over there, it goes on to say that the hardships will befall them, right? And then I'll bring them to the land that I promised to their fathers, and they'll eat and they'll become satisfied. They'll turn to other gods, they'll serve them, and they will degrade me. They will go against my covenant. So we see over there just how far things can go and where it can lead to. V'amar, and it says, Ki chol levavos doresh Hashem. Hearts, that's what God seeks, God checks. V'chol yetzer machshavos mevin, and understands all of the thoughts that go on. V'amar, and it says, Ki karov elecha davar, when you want to get close to God, Karov elecha davar ma'od. The matter is so close to you. Beficha, in your mouth, uvilvavecha, and in your heart, la'asoto. So it's there for us to do. V'amar, and it says, Ma Hashem shorel me'imach. What does God ask of you? Ki'im but liyira, to have this awe, this fear of God. Va'yira eina ela belev. That fear, where does it show itself? It's in your heart. Va're'ayon, va'machshava. It's in your heart. It's in your feelings. It's in your thoughts. So the thoughts are what can either bring action up to the highest levels or can degrade it and send it down to the lowest levels. Va'al kain, and therefore yesh lecha achi, and therefore my brother, and I'll say sisters, what we need to do is lishtadel, to try liot kol ma'asecha, to do your best that all the things you do should be miyuchadim, should be focused labore. That's yichud hama'aseh. The action should have that yichud, that singularity, that clear direction, that single direction to Hashem, Yitbarach, to the Creator, blessed is He. Valye amelcha lurik, v'tarchecha lasheker. Right? Otherwise, all the hard work that you do can become so degraded that it becomes almost for naught. V'tirchecha lasheker, and all your hard work would seem to be sheker, right? That there's falsehood there. Kamoshe Kosev, like the Pasuk says in Isaiah Yeshayahu, Lama tishkelu kesef below lechem. Why should you pay out money if you're not going to get the bread? V'yigiachem, and all that toil below l'sava, right? If it's not going to satiate you, right? So if we're doing the actions, then let's make sure that we have the focus of our mind to accompany that. Bial titalem, and do not push aside mashaho diat shariotcha alav, that which I brought up to you. Kivar kibatz l'chavashar zeh kol shar sheim mafsidei amasim hamiyuchadim le'elokim. In this shar of yichud, as we're reaching the end, I've gathered for you all of the roots, the root causes of those things that will cause your actions to become diminished. The tachat kol sheresh mehem anafim kemat she'en lam kates, and each root then has branches, right, and almost an infinite amount of branches. So I've given you the roots, right, and there are many ways that this can play out, but don't deflate yourself, don't deflate your actions. Therefore, you need to put all of your effort into this. Right? And with all that effort, then hopefully, right, your actions will be shalem, will be considered complete, full, leilokim, to God, umiyuchad lishmo, and fully miyuchad, singularly lishmo. And it'll be wanted and accepted willingly, lovingly by the Creator. Right? And just one second. Yeah, the same way that you deal with matters in your physical, material world. You try to do things, you try to have the best things. Right? You want to get, I don't know, the best car. No one's getting here a Maserati, but you want to get yourself, you want to have things that work well. You want to have good things in your life. That are cleansed from any falsehood, right? V'zach min habilba, and from confusion. The if those are the efforts you put in to this very transient world, kol shekain, certainly shetaseh kiflayin, you should do double the amount when it comes to your eternity, hakayemet, ubameh shetikarei bo elokim, that which will bring you close to God. Try your best to purify your actions. And if that will be diminished, right? And if because of that you'll be doing less things. Right? Better to do less with purity than to do a lot without that purity. Ki amat hazach hu rav. That lesser amount that's done in a pure, honest, heartfelt way, right, is greater than the rav. This has some very simple halachic, very practical ramifications. When it comes to davening, when it comes to praying, it's better to say, the Shulchan Aruch rules, it's better to say a little bit with kavanah than to say a lot without kavanah, right? That's a very, very, very practical application of what he's saying over here. Say less and know what you're saying and think about what you're saying and mull it over in your mind and feel it, then just saying words quickly and not knowing what you're saying. A little bit that's pure is a lot that's not pure is a little. The aimbo to'elet. The kol shekain sheyizaher shloya masecha im miuto uziroto bilti zach le'elokim. And certainly make sure that if you're doing a little, that you're not doing a little that's without that clarity and without that purity. So better to do a little with the focus, right? And it's even to it's amazing if before a person does a mitzvah, you're lighting the candles for Shabbos, Yontif coming up, whatever it is, any mitzvah you do, just to pause for 2-3 seconds and focus on what you're doing. I'm about to do a mitzvah that's connecting me to God, right? Even to take out those 2-3 seconds, right? Even less than that, just, whatever it is, just to have that thought. All of a sudden we are directed. All of a sudden we are focused, and it's not going in the wrong direction. Okay, we'll have to finish this up next time, and then move on to Shar HaChaniah, which is the 6th gate, which is the gate of humility. We have just a little bit more to do over here. Where are we in Sefaria? 5-6 what?
566.
566. Okay. The Hizah here. Let me wish everybody a Gemar Chatima Tova, an easy and meaningful fast. And we should all have, all of us, our families, and all Am Yisroel, the whole nation of Israel and the whole world, should have a blessed year ahead of us, please God. Okay. Good seeing everybody.
Hey.